Mic on.
Halo.
Hello.
Tes. Udah Mas Dik, oke.
Masuk.
Di
Oke.
YouTube udah.
Aku mulai ya. Okay, good morning everyone. Is it too small or should
Louder,
I
louder.
louder? Okay, so good morning everyone. Today we have the very first podcast of Indonesian Society in Cambridge. My name is Dick, nama saya Dick, dan ada teman saya, kolega untuk hari ini adalah Mbak Nita.
Iya.
Ya,
Halo,
jadi Mbak
teman-teman.
Nita adalah mahasiswa MFIN ya.
Iya,
sebelumnya.
Master of
Itu
Finance
sudah selesai.
students.
Iya, sudah
In the
selesai.
last term.
Last term. Saya sendiri PhD in Engineering, jadi salam kenal semuanya. Jadi mungkin nanti ke depannya juga bisa subscribe dan juga bantu komen dan share dan sebagainya, oke? So because of the time, so let's start the conversation with Bu Sonita. Maybe Mbak Nita, you can start first.
Oke.
Iya.
Iya. We're very grateful today. We have Ibu Sonita. Jadi ini salah satu role model untuk perempuan dan teknologi di bidang teknologi. Jadi Bu Sonita adalah teknologi eksekutif di beberapa perusahaan global, HP ya Bu ya. Dan kemudian sekarang memegang jabatan di board. Jadi kita pengen dengar perjalanan Ibu, journey Ibu sebagai orang Indonesia berkarir di kancah global, wanita dan board. Itu seperti apa Bu karirnya dimulainya?
Oke deh, terima kasih ya teman-teman semua for inviting me today. Saya jawabnya agak campur-campur gitu
Iya,
ya.
boleh,
Sorry.
Bu.
Ya, I think kalau saya lihat perjalanan hidup saya, mungkin ada kayak 3 chapter gitu, Mbak ya, yang masih itu I felt was pretty pivotal in my career. Namely the early years, and then the corporate years, and then today what I call portfolio years. And so let's start with the early years. Of course, seperti Anda ada, saya dari Indonesia asalnya. Terus, I think, I live in America right now, but of course kita semua tahu Indonesia itu negara yang besar dan sangat diverse. And of course, when I was growing up, I had that experience of understanding that Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, diversity and unity diversity was kind of like the mode of Indonesia, right? Terus waktu saya teenager, I had the opportunity to go to the US for undergraduate studies. And so I went there, I had to learn, like a new language and a new culture. And I think lesson learned yang saya dapat dari early years ini adalah meskipun I was a minority in America, I never actually look at it as a disadvantage, and quite the contrary, I look at it as an advantage, karena dari pengalaman hidup saya di Indonesia, pengalaman hidup saya di Amerika, I felt it really had helped me to develop a much more global and diverse perspective, which is valuable. And then now let's move on to the corporate years now. So, not many people know this, but I actually started my career as an entrepreneur. Right after I graduated from Berkeley, it was during the first .com boom, so I had the opportunity to start, an online game company with all my classmates, and we did that, for a couple years, and then we sold it to a larger competitor, and then after that, I went back to graduate schools, and after graduate schools, I started my career in the corporate world, and I've had, for the next 25 years or so, really focused at the intersection of innovation, technology, and usually there's a new business model. And I've done it both within new businesses at large companies, like starting 3D printing and digital manufacturing at HP, starting the new digital energy business at Siemens, which is like a old, conglomerate, but also with like venture-backed Silicon Valley technology company. So the experience has always focused on innovation, but the context is either starting new businesses within large companies or scaling new businesses that is like a disruptor, right? But lesson learned-nya dari zaman corporate ini adalah over time saya merasa success and happiness to really come from doing the intersection of what you love, which is your passion, your skills, which is what you're good at, and most importantly your purpose, which is you want to work in an area that there is something that is contributing something more to society instead of just selling a product. So
Ikigai.
Exactly. So don't get me wrong. I think if you're in business, you do have to make money, you have to make profit. tapi ada area-area seperti misalnya manufacturing,
Yeah.
or clean energy, or healthcare,
Sustainability.
sustainability, where there is kind of that additionality factor,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay, so now that was the lesson learned I got from my corporate years. And then now I'm in what they call portfolio years. So basically portfolio years just means I no longer have a 9 to 5, but it doesn't mean like you do nothing all day, eating bonbons. I still, have a portfolio of activities.
Yeah.
And so in these portfolio years, I currently serve on 2 public company boards. The first one is Sunrun. It's actually the largest consumer solar and battery service in the United States, listed on the NASDAQ. The other one is TrueBlue, which is a workforce solutions company, based in Seattle, listed in New York Stock Exchange, and they connect workers with work. And I'm very proud that in the past 3 years, we have connected more than 2 million people to work. And in addition, I'm also serving as advisors at several companies, including with Sway Ventures, which is a venture capital firm in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
Tapi lesson learn-nya di portfolio life ini adalah about giving back, both through my kind of like fiduciary role on the board, because when you're on the board of public company, at least in America, you're fiduciaries to shareholders.
Yeah.
But also, like in my portfolio years, I like to guide, coach, and develop others as leaders. And as board members, you have a lot of opportunity to do that, usually with the management team or also with, the executive teams of the companies that you're sitting on the board of. Yes.
Tapi aku penasaran Bu, dari awalnya bisa kuliah S1 di Amerika atau Ibu memang lahir di Amerika atau dari Indonesia kemudian?
Dari
kesana?
Indonesia, ya saya dari Indonesia, tapi memang maksudnya itu di peer group saya, like a lot of people, wanted to go to America for school, and so I was just when you're young, you kind of like don't really think too much, and of course I was also fortunate that my family, could help support, that I guess dream, right? And so I was able to go to America for my undergrad. And actually the big plan, to be very honest with you, was never to stay that long in America. I was just, just like most Indonesians, you go to school, you work a couple years. Yeah, you can go to graduate school. You can even work for a couple more years. But usually most people go back to Indonesia, right? But I think for me, inadvertently, throughout my journey, somehow there's like an opportunity, happened, and I had to take the opportunity, and then because of that, another opportunity happened. You took again that opportunity, and then and then the rest is history. Exactly. But of course, I still go back to Jakarta at least twice a year. My parents there, so I do go back. You know what I mean? But somehow the career has been in America.
Iya. Berarti ketika S1 dulu Ibu sendiri atau memang ada keluarga?
No, sendiri.
Ibu sendiri?
Iya.
Luar biasa, dari zaman itu loh. Kalau sekarang mungkin kita mudah ya dengan koneksi segala macam, kalau zaman dulu kan sulit ya Bu.
Terus terang juga agak culture shock juga ya, Mas, karena culture-nya di Amerika untuk undergrad, I'm sure maybe in the UK as well, the culture is very different ya. Maksudnya for instance, when I first got there, when people say, let's go to a party, kita kan kalau party di Indonesia beda sama partinya orang Amerika. Dan maksudnya itu juga orang Amerika sangat into sports menurut saya ya. Jadi even the college experience, people like to go to like the football games, or people like to, it's a very different culture. So I think as a pendatang gitu ya, international student for me at the time, I think not only did you have to learn new language, tapi culture-nya juga berbeda.
Ya, berarti kan di sini ada teman-teman diaspora juga ya Bu ya, yang bukan student, mereka mulai bisnis di UK. Berarti kan Ibu punya pengalaman membangun bisnis sendiri di US, kemudian juga Ibu membangun bisnis baru dari dalam perusahaan. Itu dua hal yang berbeda ya Bu ya. Dari dua hal yang berbeda itu kira-kira lesson learn-nya apa ya Bu ya, terkait sebagai pendatang membangun bisnis di negara orang, kemudian sebagai dari dalam perusahaan membangun bisnis baru, seperti apa?
I think menurut saya membangun bisnis yang benar-benar dari ground up sama membangun bisnis within a large established company itu very different ya Mbak ya. Meskipun ada karakteristiknya yang mungkin sama, tapi yang paling penting nomor satu adalah mendapatkan product market fit. Jadi kebetulan kan saya memang bidangnya kebanyakan teknologi ya. Jadi biasanya ada teknologi baru. Nah, teknologi baru ini biasanya yang maksudnya tuh invent bukan saya. Meskipun saya engineer, tapi justru yang invent other people. Tapi the question is, okay, ada teknologi baru, be it IoT, be it AI, whatever it is. Tapi apa product market fit dari teknologi baru itu dengan apa yang dibutuhkan di market ya. Itu nomor satu, itu yang paling penting ya. Terus kedua, setelah kita mendapatkan product market fit adalah bisnis modelnya seperti apa. Nah, terus yang saya lihat adalah kalau kita startup biasanya karena kita nggak ada legacy, itu lebih mudah untuk lihat sesuatu yang paradigmanya lain dari yang ada sekarang ini. Tapi if you're in a large company, usually large companies want to innovate, but it's very hard for them to see a new paradigm that is not the current paradigm.
Iya, susah sekali.
It's extremely, almost impossible. So actually for many large companies, when they want to start a new business, they kind of carve out the new business to be outside of the mothership.
Iya.
Because the mothership, perusahaan-perusahaan besar itu kan kayak udah di-optimize for scaling. Jadi proses optimization-nya is for scale and for risk management. Tapi kalau kita starting something new, apalagi paradigmanya baru, jadi seperti misalnya, ya ini zaman dulu waktu Uber pertama kali keluar ya, itu kan paradigma baru. Maksudnya itu paradigma sebelum itu kan taksi. Nah, it's almost impossible untuk menurut saya taxi companies to even thought about Uber as a possibility. So the same thing, when you're at a large company, usually when they want to innovate, even though they might have the core intellectual property, they almost have to like structure the new business differently with like a different metrics, different expectations, different talent, and even different incentive systems.
Iya. Itu amazing banget sih. Tapi aku juga penasaran, karena kan awalnya ibu membuat company sendiri ya, yang tadi itu, kemudian menjual dan kemudian seperti kecemplung lah di Silicon Valley gitu.
Right.
Nah itu tuh kan nggak gampang ya, maksudnya apalagi Silicon Valley kita bisa bilang seperti hutan belantara gitu.
Right.
Gimana cara ibu bisa guiding sampai seperti sekarang gitu, menjadi board director di salah satu company di sana gitu.
I see.
Tipsnya gimana?
Tipsnya oke.
Apakah ada sponsor misalnya Bu, atau
apakah harus ada network,
di dalam
mentor?
perusahaan
No, I
gitu, atau
think
mentor?
I think for me, it's almost like gimana ya kalau kita lagi menjalanin, kadang-kadang kita nggak bisa lihat.
Betul.
Saya merasa maksudnya itu my story became much clearer afterwards because then I can start seeing the themes, the trends ya. Nah kalau menurut saya adalah themes dan trend saya mungkin ada 3 ya, Mas sama Mbak. Yang satu adalah saya tahu I'm good at like somehow translating new technology and scaling it. Somehow that became my thing over time. And then I make sure I do a good job. That I help to like launch and scale companies, help to like improve revenues, profitability. So from a business perspective, I do those 2 things and making sure the business is good. Because after some time, I think people will start noticing you. So to be very honest with you, like I've never looked for a job. The last time I looked for a job was probably in 2006.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but I feel like if you find what you're good at and then you keep doing it, I think somehow people will see you. Yes, exactly. So that's one. Find what you're good at and keep doing it and deliver, right? Terus yang kedua adalah saya juga merasa if there are opportunities yang mungkin other people feel, oh that's kind of not glamorous or that doesn't sound so good. But if I have that opportunity, I actually go and do it. And the reason for that is because kadang-kadang ya sesuatu outcome yang positif itu kita nggak bisa lihat kecuali kita udah melakukannya. Terus kalau kita selalu melakukan hal-hal yang semua orang juga mau melakukan, somehow like you cannot differentiate yourself. So I feel like that was the second thing that I did. And then of course after a while, right? Of course you have to gain experience and confidence over time. Kita harus punya point of view. Point of view-nya itu harus make sense and strong. And if somehow it's slightly different and it makes sense, I think people start noticing it as well. I think like for me, after a while, I started to be able to see patterns and to think about new business model paradigm that may not be obvious. And I feel like that then became my superpower. So I'm not saying everyone should follow my
Yeah.
journey.
Journey.
However, I think finding that kind of like what you're good at, and take all the opportunities that come your way, even if it doesn't look glamorous, and then developing a strong point of view that is valuable, that might be valuable to someone, that is actually strong and able to articulate it, and then people know that's you, if that makes sense.
Iya,
Oke,
iya.
wow.
Iya.
Terus ini Bu, tips-tips buat teman-teman nih Bu. Sekarang kan ada AI dan macam-macam ya.
betul.
Maksudnya udah leading banget, kayak Google aja udah ngeluarin notebook
Betul,
LM yang
betul.
kita belajar sendiri, udah dibantu sama Google dan bisa
Iya.
bikin podcast online,
Iya,
kita bisa
iya.
interrupt
Betul.
di sana. Nah, tips dari Ibu di samping kita sambil belajar dan kita keep up sama tren, apalagi
Iya.
misalnya atau teman-teman yang udah sibuk sama corporate ya, di corporate world itu
Iya.
gimana dan apa sih Bu yang harus kita lakukan gitu? Apakah kita harus ambil course misalnya di AI atau yang related?
Oh gitu
Seperti
ya,
apa?
iya. Terus terang AI ini emang very interesting ya Mbak, karena menurut saya ini pertama kali where the white collar work will be disrupted, right? Kalau in the past kan dengan automation kebanyakan blue collar work that was disrupted, tapi ini dengan AI knowledge workers will be the first to be disrupted.
Ya.
Jadi menurut saya mungkin ada 3 hal yang harus kita pikirkan, karena terus terang no one knows how this whole thing will end yet.
Ya.
Tapi satu, menurut saya kita memang harus bisa tahu bagaimana kita bisa leverage AI untuk make our self better, our job better. Of course, that depends on your own role,
Yeah.
your own job, but basically leverage AI to make yourself more productive. So that's the kind of
So we don't really need to understand to make AI, but how to
no, but
use
know
that.
how to use
Yeah.
it, exactly. And then I think the second level is to think about which industries might be fundamentally disrupted by AI. And there will be some, like for instance, the software as a service business model, that will be completely disrupted
Yeah,
by
yeah.
agentic AI. And then you kind of think about, okay, what new business models might be enabled by AI? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
then start kind of like trying to get ahead of it and perhaps join companies or like learn about some of these new business models that might be enabled by AI. I don't know what that is. It could be agent as a service. It could be like maybe now you can have a company of like 10 people that can like scale to $1
Yeah.
billion revenue. It's like you kind of want to get ahead of it, right? And then I think the last one is like also to think about where would you find purpose, right? It's kind of like if AI will be doing things for you, there will be certain job that you just won't be doing. And
Yeah.
so kind of like you need to think about, so where can you find purpose? Because
Yeah.
in the past, people find satisfaction by achieving.
Yeah.
So now kind of like if AI is doing things for you, how can you find that meaning and like satisfaction through other ways? And actually I think people are still figuring it out because this whole kind of AI evolution is happening as we speak.
Yeah, yeah,
Ya,
yeah.
setuju.
I think maybe we can, if there is any question from the audience, we can just take some. Is there some questions? Okay, so I think it's fine. So maybe come back to the conversation because I also baca dari resume Ibu, Ibu dapat beberapa penghargaan. Congratulations Ibu
Thank you.
dari White House, kebetulan ada juga dari Asian American Hall of Fame ya,
Iya.
Bu ya. Nah itu seperti apa dan bagaimana sih kalau kita siapa tuh bisa juga mendapat itu seperti apa sih Bu?
Oh, saya merasa kalau again ya mendapat itu adalah menurut saya karena someone knows about your particular contribution and point of view. At least that has been my
Okay.
experience. Jadi kalau let's just use Asian American Hall of Fame as an example.
Iya.
Waktu saya pertama kali di kontak oleh Asian Hall of Fame 2017, saya juga nggak tahu tentang organisasi ini, tapi pas saya cek, most of the people that got the award before that were mostly celebrities, so people like Bruce Lee,
Iya, iya,
you know what I
iya.
mean, Norman Mineta,
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
like a secretary of, I forgot, transportation in
Yeah,
the US.
yeah.
Kind of like Christy Yamaguchi, which is a gold medalist
Yeah,
I guess,
yeah,
in
yeah.
ice skating. And so I kind of thought, that's kind of interesting. But then they told me, well, now they want to expand like the recognition for kind of
Not only celebrities,
yeah, not
but
only
yeah.
celebrities, but also normal people with some achievements, right? And they said, you know, like you'll be the first Indonesian
I think you are the
woman,
first, yeah.
Indonesian woman in technology and business.
Technology, yeah.
And so of course saya merasa honored and all that. Tapi saya juga menggunakan kesempatan itu untuk encourage, you know what I mean, them to recognize other
Betul.
normal people. Because at the end of the day, you know, like you can make a contribution. Kamu gak usah jadi movie star
Betul.
to make a contribution. Tapi you know, like you can be someone who's making a contribution in a more, let's just call it normal ways, right?
Yeah.
So I think like, so you ask me like, kalau buat saya, of course it's an honor, tapi kalau buat saya yang lebih penting adalah bagaimana saya bisa menggunakan platform-platform itu untuk help recognize others,
Yeah,
and
opening the
also,
ways lah.
exactly, yeah, to kind of pay it forward for other people.
Yes, yes, yeah, yeah.
Kalau ini sendiri Bu, misalnya kalau Ibu kan backgroundnya memang ada engineering ya Bu ya,
Iya.
pasti dekat dengan teknologi.
Iya.
Nah buat teman-teman di sini, misalnya khususnya perempuan yang memang mereka jauh dengan bidang teknologi gitu ya, misalnya dari social science,
Iya.
itu kita mau be part of the technology itu tipsnya seperti apa ya Bu? Terus kemudian nanti kalau supaya semakin banyak represent women in technology, kira-kira harus seperti apa? Ekosistemnya juga harus support, pandangan Ibu
Gitu ya, oke. So, mungkin saya jawab yang pertanyaan terakhir dulu.
Oke.
That's a little bit easier for me. Jadi kalau menurut saya Mbak, untuk increasing the number of women in technology, mungkin harus dilihat dari bidang supply and demand. Jadi let's start with the supply. I don't know about in the UK, at least in the United States, I think like girls have to be encouraged to study math and science from a very young age. Ada survei dari Society of Women Engineers yang bilang di grade school, SD ya,
Yeah.
grade school, 60% dari boys bilang favorite subjectnya in school is math and science. Tapi cuma 40% of girls said their favorite subject is math and science. And then when you go to universities, at least in the United States, when you look at the top 5 states in the United States that graduate the most women in engineering and STEM, the percentage also still low, 20%. Jadi menurut saya dari supply, dari masa kecil kita harus bilang for girls, hey, you know, like studying math and science is cool. It's not just for the boys, right? So that's one. And then I think women also need good role models who are good in math and science. Both at the aspirational level, which is good, like the Nobel Prize winners, the CEO Fortune 500 tech companies. Tapi juga butuh role model yang praktikal. Maksud saya adalah women need to see, oh there are like female who are good in math and science, that is just 1 to 2 steps ahead of them. Karena kan kalau kamu misalnya orang di high school, probably you're not going to be, the next thing you're not going to be CEO, but you're going to maybe go to, you know, undergraduate in math and science. If you're an undergraduate, you need to see there are, you know, girls who are good in math and science in graduate schools, in the workplace, things like that. And then now let's talk about the demand side. I think for companies, they have to be very intentional in not just recruiting. I think a lot of companies are recruiting, but a lot of times the female fall off the cliff after the middle management. But I think the companies need to be intentional in not just recruiting, but actually putting in the resources and the commitment and the sponsorship to develop, to retain and develop, you know what I mean, the female leaders in the company. And basically that just means it has to come from the tone at the top, from the board to the CEO and the whole C-suite. They need to fully champion and sponsor it, if that makes sense. Terus kalau social science, itu bukan bidang saya ya, tapi social science maybe like focusing more on the applications of technology and how can that help making like a material impact in, you know, whatever social sector that, you know, you're working at.
Is there an online question? Yeah.
So there's a question. If you get the idea from brainstorming with the help of AI, will that make you an imposter? That's the first question. The second one, Ibu kan punya experience in building tech company di US. Menurut Ibu, kalau di Indonesia sendiri, kalau Indonesia mau maju di bidang tech industry, kira-kira industri apa yang bisa dimajukan atau bagaimana sih caranya supaya bisa develop?
I see. Okay, well that's a good question. Okay, pertanyaan pertama, kalau kita brainstorm terus AI memberikan kita idea, apakah kita imposter? Menurut saya bukan. Itu bukan imposter. AI maybe can give you several options, tapi you still have to like make a decision, like which one you're gonna go to.
Yeah.
And then I think as you iterate, even if you go with like what the AI is suggesting, but as you iterate, you're going to find out whether it's working or not. So I think you're not an imposter. Because at the end of the day, to be very honest with you, ideas are easy. Like what's hard is the execution,
Yes.
right? And then the second thing, and again, I don't want to speak to, because I don't have experience working in Indonesia, so I don't want to be presumptuous here. Tapi kalau menurut saya mungkin di Indonesia bidang-bidang yang bisa leverage teknologi yang meaningful ya, mungkin lebih di bidang yang let's just call it hard science a little bit. Jadi misalnya, karena kalau saya pikir Indonesia itu kan punya banyak natural resources, right? Punya banyak mineral. Terus beberapa mineral itu bisa dikelola, diolah untuk menjadi, I don't know, electric vehicle batteries or things like that. Tapi I'm under the impression di Indonesia teknologi yang mungkin bisa meaningful untuk Indonesia lebih kayak di bidang yang deep tech and hard science.
Mungkin kayak circular economy juga ya Bu ya, karena waste recycling juga kan Indonesia that's a big problem.
Waste
The highest
recycling,
plastic.
or even like the I guess we do have a lot of palm oil, right? But making sure that like the deforestation is okay. And the reason I say that, again, I don't have experience, so please like you can kill me, if what I'm saying is presumptuous. Tapi seperti kita lihat misalnya dari yang seperti Gojek atau Tokopedia atau apa gitu ya. Kalau dari apa yang saya observe, the GDP per capita in Indonesia, the unit economics is not there yet. Untuk beberapa business model technology to make sense.
Betul.
I don't know whether that's the case, but to me that seems to be like that. So maybe people di Pulau Jawa atau di Jakarta, yes, those are fine. Tapi kan Indonesia bukan cuma orang di Jakarta atau di Pulau Jawa, tapi banyak di tempat-tempat lain. Dan teknologi lain menurut saya yang akan sangat berguna untuk Indonesia itu adalah logistics. Karena sekarang cost untuk transportation and moving like goods and services in Indonesia, I'm under the impression it's extremely expensive. So somehow if there is a technology that can make logistics more affordable, I think that will be very meaningful for Indonesia.
Betul Bu. Karena kan kita negara kepulauan ya Bu.
Iya. I think because of the time. Okay, we have
dari online. Apa solusi AI untuk 80% workers yang belum bisa update atau upgrade ilmunya jadi data analis atau AI developer? Apakah gig economy solusinya?
Iya.
Wow, that is to be honest with you, I think that is a question that everyone is grappling with. Dan terus terang, menurut saya sih nggak semua orang harus jadi data scientist. Tapi I feel semua orang harus belajar how can they leverage AI to make their job better. So let's just use an example ya. Ada research dari profesor di Stanford, I think last year, that dia research kayak 5,000 call center customer service agents from Fortune 500 companies. Terus what he found out, which was interesting, the agents who knew how to use AI, somehow they solve customers' problems faster, so the customer is happier, they can process more customers per hour, and then also the satisfaction on the customer side was much higher. And what they found out, somehow AI itu membantu customer service agent yang nggak gitu experience dan yang belum begitu lama dibanding membantu customer service agent yang udah experience dan sudah lama bekerja di situ. Kalau menurut saya ini kan salah satu example di mana somehow in this particular situation they have figured out, okay, if we teach our customer service agents this way, somehow they all can be much more productive. Jadi terus terang sih, menurut saya akan ada roles yang akan di replace oleh AI ya, itu udah pasti. Cuman pertanyaannya adalah nanti ada role-role baru yang kita juga nggak bisa pikirin sekarang yang is enabled by AI. Jadi maksudnya orang tuh harus kayak bisa lebih adaptif, tapi untuk masa ini adalah bagaimana caranya bisa menggunakan AI supaya kita bisa lebih produktif.
Betul. Karena sekarang ada pekerjaan baru namanya prompt profesional, Bu.
Iya.
Jadi bikin prompt.
Of course,
Yeah.
like prompting is so
Prompting,
important
right.
because as we all know, right?
Yeah.
Prompt engineering, I guess that's what
Yeah.
they call it. Because how you prompt the AI, the outcome that the AI
Will be
gives is
different.
very different.
Yeah.
That's why. Ya, salah satunya sekarang udah mulai pada mau beralih.
Totally.
Yeah. I think to close the session because our time is quite limited.
Yep.
So maybe what is the key takeaways, Bro, from all of your career, like 30 years of global experience? For us student, like what's the practical key takeaways untuk kita student terutama yang diaspora juga di sini.
Iya.
Karena kita juga di asosiasi ini kan bukan hanya student ya, tapi ada diaspora juga, pekerja profesional. Gimana caranya mungkin mereka bisa seperti ibu. Gitu.
Dan menjadi representasi Indonesia yang
Iya,
baik gitu
iya,
ya, di
betul.
luar.
Oke, saya pengen share something yang terus terang saya sendiri baru realize kira-kira 2-3 tahun belakangan ini. Not too long ago saya kayak dengerin podcast. Ini ada orang, dia venture capitalist. He gave the last lecture at the Stanford Business School graduation. And basically the lecture was about how to lead an asymmetric life. Which I found interesting because I never thought about, do you want to lead a symmetric life or asymmetric life? But the whole point is like, ada pilar-pilar yang harus kita lakukan sebagai manusia, di mana kita punya chance untuk get an asymmetric outcome. Because if you think about it, venture capitalists is all about that, right? They invest in like so many companies, but maybe just one or two will give them asymmetric outcome. Nah, this guy shared 3 pillars. And all 3 I think is very true, but I wish I had known about the first one much earlier in my career. Pilar yang pertama adalah you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable as early as possible in your career, like as often as fast as possible. Karena itu akan jadi kamu punya superpower. Oke. Ini udah terbukti di segala macam bidang. Sama atlet juga udah terbukti. Karena kalau kita mau pikir atlet itu kan tiap atlet pasti bangun pagi.
Sangat uncomfortable lah.
Maksudnya bangun pagi, mereka mereka diet, mereka train very hard. Tapi the difference between those who are like exceptional versus those who are good, mereka bilang yang exceptional itu sometimes when you train, you get into like an area where like the oxygen is like very thin, like somehow you can breathe that easily. Tapi if you push, it's very uncomfortable, you push, all of a sudden you started like operating at a much higher level that other people do not push. So you know, that's just one example of like you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And then the second, you have to do your thing. You cannot do other people's thing. Like, you know, I'm good in this, but I'm not good in that. You know what I mean? I think when you're young, you have a tendency to like, oh, lihat-lihat teman-teman semuanya kok maunya begini, jadi saya juga maunya begitu. Tapi that may not be your thing. So do your thing, not other people's thing. And then I think the last one is just you have to do it for a long time. You have to do it for like many years because the compound interest is very, very powerful. That's it.
Wow.
Wow, amazing ya. I think it's because of the time, so thank you so much, Bu Sonita, and then also all of our audience here. Jadi ini adalah podcast pertama kita. Nanti stay tune supaya kita bisa bertemu lagi di podcast berikutnya. Sampai jumpa.
Jumpa.
Thank you.
Thank you.